Hello and welcome. You must be thinking why I am holding these papers, and I'll explain you why. In today's video, I would like to talk about something else that is related to money, but is something different. I would like to share with you how I transformed my life with a vision board and positive mindset and manifestation techniques that my life completely changed in a positive way. I'm trying to declutter my paperwork, so I have a filing cabinet and I'm trying to get through all this legal paperwork and just shred whatever I don't need it. While I was shuffling those papers, I came across to this form. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll explain what that form is. And attached to this form, there are some UK coins, 5p coins. And there is a reason and there is a story behind those coins. And just looking at that form, I wanted to cry because my memories took me back how far I came since then. The form I was sharing with you, this form of those pennies, it was my mortgage kind of statement and schedule. I was paying bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks, if I was able to make a payment, I was putting letters and a smiley face. Thanks God, I managed to pay this 2 weeks. And I was putting smiley faces. So that's the story about this form of these pennies. It was my 55th birthday, and a friend of mine, she took me to Leeds Castle as a birthday gift. We visited the castle, and after that we were walking on High Street looking for a place to have a bite. She knew my situation, that I was going through a rough time. I was jobless at that time, and the situation was really difficult, and we're brainstorming ideas and trying to, and she knew I have a mortgage to pay. So while we're discussing that I need a job that is going to pay at least 25,000 a year at that time, we're walking and I came across to 5p. So I pick it up because, you know, if you find a penny or a coin you pick up as a good luck. Again, we kept talking and we kept walking. I found another 5p. And that was it. My friend, she looked at me because she was sort of spiritual woman. And she says, Vera, you'll get through this. This is a sign from above. Because today you are 55 and you found 5-5. So there is a sign. Looks like 5 is your lucky number. At that time, my mortgage was close to 50,000. And again, we're discussing, if I find a job that is going to pay 25,000, I might pay my mortgage by my 60th birthday. Well, guess what? I paid by my 58th birthday. I paid completely off my mortgage. It wasn't a smooth sailing for me. Between 2012 and 2014, I went, honestly, I'm really to say, through hell. I lost my job, I lost my savings, I almost lost my flat in Vancouver, and the worst thing happened, I lost my mother within a couple weeks to cancer. My guilt is eating me to this day that I wasn't by my mother's side to hold her hand. And I failed as a daughter, and like I said, I have to live with that. My accommodation arrangement was kind of difficult as well. Why? Because I was living in somebody's flat, council flat. It was a studio, but the landlord, he was nice, but he was renting illegally because he was living somewhere else and he was making money. So for me, it was difficult because I couldn't even apply for benefits because they were asking, you know, where are you and how much you're paying and stuff like that. So the only one thing I applied for job seeker allowance, and that job seeker allowance plus I was doing some mystery shopping. I signed up with a few agencies and I was always on call um, in the hotels, and I was looking actively for a hotel job to be like again hotel manager or front desk manager or anything, just to find a job. To make the ends meet, somebody suggested why I don't rent a couch, because my studio was quite big and I had a big kitchen. And I thought, couch? But they said, Vera, it's London. In London, everybody is kind of making money and trying to survive. It's temporary. So a girl I was working before I lost my job, she was very nice to me. And she says, I have a friend, she's from Paris, and she just moved to London, and maybe you can guys get together and see how it works. Anyway, it was a blessing because with Marie, we used to live for a year. And now, at that time, I was shocked because can you imagine at my age, when I felt like I have a home to go, but I couldn't move at that age, because I thought, okay, at least here I have something. Going back to Vancouver, I'm nowhere of a job, you know what I mean? So anyway, with Marie, we used to live for almost a year, but because she was so tall, I offered her my bed because, the couch was too short for her. So I was sleeping on the couch. I slept on the couch for a year in order to survive in London. Living with Marie in the same kind of flat, it was kind of, now when I look back, I have the warmest memories of this girl. And we shared because we're paying 600. So she was paying 300 and I was paying 300. So at least I could survive. Then I was starting to get part-time jobs here, part-time jobs there. At least I kept alive, I kept afloat. Then eventually, I found a job. I found a full-time job, but again, I was out of luck because I was working in the hotel, but apparently the hotel was already sold. So they needed someone just to run for a few months. So after 6 months, again, I lost the job. Again, I am jobless. It was pure nightmare, to be honest. Worse to that, my landlord was getting in trouble with his wife, and all these legalities and flats and everything was kind of, he was having a hard time. So he asked us to move. Well, again, where do you move? And my income was really kind of small. Another friend suggested, why you don't become guardian? I didn't even know what that word means. But when she explained, well, I didn't have a choice. I had to, because don't forget, I had to pay my mortgage in Vancouver and support myself in London. So I became a guardian. I'm not too sure if you know what guardian means, but it's, again, they don't take people from the street. They fill up the buildings which are going to be demolished or, change into something. So they were trying to prevent from squatters. And I was accepted. It was again another blessing because it was like 350 for a room and shared kitchen. For me at that time, I couldn't be like, how can I say, picky or, as long as I had a roof over my head and, to be safe. And I was safe. So I was guardian for almost a year and a half and 3 different buildings. My last building was on High Street in Wandsworth. As I mentioned, I had some problems here in Vancouver and I almost lost my flat. So one year I came for my holiday and finally I got access to my flat. I got the key and I got access to my flat. I'll never forget that feeling because the walls were empty, everything was in the storage. And here I am in my flat, bare floor, And a friend of mine, she says, come and stay with me a couple days. And I said, no, even if I have to sleep on a bare floor, I want to sleep in my own kind of flat. And I remember I fell on my knees and I was crying. I couldn't get up because I was so powerless because of the sadness, and everything's like just hit me at that time. And that right then and there, I promised myself I'll work hard, I'll do everything, whatever I can, to save my place and to have a roof over my head, because it's very important to have a stability, especially when you get older. Before I got the council flat, I was working with a colleague, and she knew my situation. And after a while, she approached me and she says, Vera, do you have a vision board? Do you know how to write abundance checks? I had no idea what she was talking about. And she started to explain me. I think by then she had a good picture about me, because I think I was negative. My attitude was negative. In what sense? I think because I was going through such a rough time, I was always, okay, this happened, what next? What next? Basically, I was attracting negativity into my life by asking, okay, what's next? Instead of staying positive. So the poor girl, she decided to help me, and I'm forever grateful to her. So she was introducing me to that vision board. She was explaining. She was even sharing her kind of vision board. She showed me those abundance checks. I was very skeptic. I was very skeptic because I thought, well, what a piece of paper or magazine clips, how it can help me in my situation. But I decided to give it a try. So I started to do my own research online. I was researching, I read The Secret Book. Of course, it didn't sink at all, that book, into my head. But I started to dig more information. Then I came across to an interview. Oprah was doing an interview with Jim Carrey, and that's when it clicked. Jim Carrey was sharing how he wrote a check many, many years ago before he became famous. 5 million, he was writing an abundance check. And that's it. So I thought, let me try. After doing my research, I had a pile of magazines and magazine clips and papers, and I created my vision board. And I was quite modest what I was putting on that board, because I thought, well, I cannot be greedy, you know what I mean? So can you imagine, I put 150 for British passport. I didn't have even 150 pounds to apply for a British passport. And I was putting clips about eating better, healthier, because at that time, I was on a $5 per week. That's how bad was my situation. So, and I was putting a flat in London, to have a flat in London, and, you know, things like this. Then I started to write those abundance checks during the new moon. So you write them during the new moon once a month. There are so many websites how to write, but I encourage you, try it. I'm living kind of, you know, example. Things are improving, but I changed my attitude. I changed my thinking. I changed how I approach things. If things happen, I cannot change. It's in the past, it's gone. You know what I mean? I just move forward. So I changed my mindset to more kind of be positive, and things started to improve in my life. I made copies of my vision board, and I had them on the fridge, I had in the cupboards, I had in my diary, I had on my phone. It reminded me daily to stay focused and grateful. And after a while, I could see the changes, and the abundance started to flow into my life. And I wasn't flooded with cash overnight, but I noticed I started to attract abundance into my life. let's say art. I never was into art. I didn't have a clue about art, but somehow I started to create art. Then I started to sell, and that's the abundance, you know. I started to make money with my art. Traveling. I was dreaming about traveling. But guess what? Because I was saving and selling my art and whatever I could sell or work extra shifts, I was traveling, and I traveled over 30 countries. I traveled through Europe. I traveled to many countries. So I have memories now to live with during my retirement. The reason I'm sharing with you all this because somebody else shared with me and I improved my life. So if you want to improve your own life, create your own vision board, write those abundance checks, find the magazines, clip the images that appeals to you, depends what stage you are, what you want in your life, and create your own vision board. Ask the universe and be open to receive all this abundance and believe it because it is happening. I hope you enjoyed this video and you feel inspired to try these techniques, and I wish you all the best. Try to shift your mindset. Remember, abundance comes in many forms. Focus on gratitude and positivity. Be patient and trust the process, and things will work out.